Hello everybody, what's up, and welcome to the channel where we learn to be true heroes in the world of Overwatch. Today I have another VoD review, and as you can see, this one was sent in cropped in sort of a strange way, but anytime I try to blow it up or zoom in, it really deteriorates the quality, so it looks best like this. I'm just going to keep it this way. Anyway, this was sent in by a player named Jade, and Jade plays Zenyatta. She asks about positioning on King of the Hill maps, and now King of the Hill maps can be quite difficult, especially for support players, to really find their positioning on, because in regular maps like Payload, CP, there are clearly defined attackers, defenders, clearly defined boundaries. Now here you can see that we've been here for quite a while, she has, that is, and you would normally think that the boundary for this map, the front, like the line of scrimmage, I guess you could call it, would be like here, down the middle. But most King of the Hill maps are not set up like that. Most of them are circular, they have lots of ways around, and chances are, because you don't see anyone here, no one's coming out through here, which means the other team is probably going all the way around through the back, or through dark room, and they're going to come out this way. So now the line is actually not this, it's more like this, with her team controlling this area, this low ground on the point, and the other team controlling either up here on the stairs or even back by her team's spawn. And this is something that you need to constantly be aware of, because if the line were drawn like this, she would be in a pretty good position way in the back, but it's not. It's like this, which makes her in the front line. And we can see that people start to die over here, so now it's very clear where the other team is, and yet she's still going to come this way, which is very, very dangerous, because like I said, this is now the new front line. And indeed, she does see a lot of people. Luckily for her, the Roadhog misses his hook, but she's still in a lot of danger. She has to play very safely, very scared, which means that she's not going to have much impact. She can't get orbs on people who need them, and eventually she's going to wind up dying herself regardless. So if we look at that really quick again, like I said already, the line of scrimmage right now, considering enemy team is here, allied team is here, that's sort of how it's working out. And she's right here on the front line. Where could she have gone? Well, she could have gone into the point, which would have put her relatively far away from the front line. That would have been okay if she was in a rush to really get somewhere safer fast. But she still would have been pretty exposed. It's difficult to get out to maneuver around there, especially for Zenyatta. If there's someone up there, which there probably is, because remember, they're in black room, then it's going to be pretty hard for you to stay alive. Instead, if you went up and around to here, that ledge, that would have been very, very good. So whenever you find yourself in this position on this particular segment of this particular map, lots of particulars, I know, and you find it yourself with the enemy team here and your team there with this sort of line, I do suggest, if you're one of those backline heroes like a support, to come back and take this high ground back here, because it's relatively difficult to reach you from the enemy team's perspective. So next time you're in a game and you don't really know where to stand, try drawing imaginary lines, and depending on your hero role, stand according to it. If you're a frontliner, stand in the front. If you're backliner, stand in the back. Now, there is obviously a hurt Genji here, and she's not putting an orb on him, and she's going to continue not putting orbs on people for the next several seconds. Still no Harmony orb, and there we go, finally comes up. And that's something that she actually improves on as she plays through just this one match, which makes me think it might be like a warm-up issue where maybe she's just not very focused when she first starts playing. I'm not very sure. But aside from your raw mechanical reaction time, you really have to, I'm just going to keep playing this, you really have to focus on the orbs. You're going to see a lot of times when Jade will focus on left-clicking people as opposed to putting orbs down. And as Zenyatta, you really, when I play Zenyatta, as I come around a corner, this is me on the E button. Like, you really need to just get those orbs out as fast as possible as you come around the corner. And a lot of times she'll wait a pretty good amount of time before coming around the corner to actually put orbs on people. And you can see your teammates through corners. So if you see someone hurt, just as you come around, I mean, eventually you'll get the timing down, but worst comes to worst, just spam it. Because they have no cooldown, so don't be afraid, just continually spam it. And a good thing that might be good for training if you want to learn Zenyatta, if you want to get better at orbing with Zenyatta, is just go into a game And maybe a quick play game would be better for this. And just not even left click. Literally don't left click, only orb. Only orb. And then add in the left clicking later on. Because it does take a while to get that multitasking element down pretty well. So Jade is quite bad as far as not her targets for her orbs, but just putting an orb on anyone. So I do suggest that at the very least, if you can't decide who to put an orb on, just throw one out. Just spam orbs, spam discords, spam harmonies. It's better to be out than to not be out, regardless. Now, some of you observant viewers will be cringing a little bit at this ultimate you just saw here. And I guess I'll take this time to talk a little bit about how you should be using Zenyatta's ult. So, unless you're in a scenario where it's a big team fight and like all 4 or 5 of your teammates are all very low and you can get that a giant heal off, you generally want to save Zenyatta's ultimate specifically and only to counter ultimates on the other team. So, for example, here we see Reaper is a great ultimate to counter with Zenyatta because you out heal his DPS. Soldier is not a bad one. Roadhog's quite good. Definitely not McCree. So actually, they don't have too much wombo on the other team, but they do have enough that you can definitely save your ultimate for those big plays that the other team tries to do. This is especially essential when they have heroes like Genji or Zarya or even Reinhardt, as long as you don't get caught in the stun, of course. In fact, if I were to give any Zenyatta player advice up until they got into like Master Tier Plus, where they're already good enough to make their own decisions, then just literally never ult unless it's countering an enemy ult. The number of times where it's appropriate to just ult in the middle of a fight randomly to heal up your team or whatever is very, very, very rare. Anyway, if we get into the next section of this map, so they lost the first point. As far as positioning on this map goes, it's quite difficult because there's no real good angles to be far away on this point. So Jade is actually picking a pretty good spot here to stand. Of course, she has to be careful for Divas or Lucios coming to push her off. But other than that, this is quite a good place. I do recommend that if you're playing Zenyatta or a similar hero, that you should probably stand here. I like this. Again, if we sort of draw a line, so there's 2 different ways that we can, if you're defending, there's 2 different lines that we can draw. Either the team is coming in from here. Oh, I have a green pen now. Huh. Anyway, either the team's coming in from here, like I said, in which case you draw this type of line, or maybe this type of line, depending on how far they're in, or they're coming from up here, in which case you draw this type of line. Now, they could be coming from both directions, in which case you draw a diagonal line across the point, which is why this spot right here is good, because if there's a line this way, then you can just shoot through this door. And if there's a line this way, then you can come through this direction. So once again, as far as positioning is concerned, this is quite a good place to stand on this map. Again, here we see multiple people are damaged, so there is a decision to be made. Who do you put the orb on? Now, of course, maybe this back here, the Roadhog with 1 health, could be argued to be the best option, but in the heat of the fight, it might take you a second to realize that. And what Jade is going to do is just think about it. No orbs, not going to put out any orbs, just think about it, eventually put it on the Roadhog. So let me kind of elaborate on the orbing point that I was making before. If you have to think, at least press shift on somebody who's hurt while you think, and then you can just switch it later. There's no cooldown on the orbs. It's not like you're losing anything by just spamming the button. And you can see it's not because this player is slow or anything like that. It's just that she sort of overthinks things. So at least throw out that E, throw out that shift. So here we are, we're respawned, and as you can see, Roadhog is dead. So there's only 5 people up for her team at the moment. And she's going to make a decision that is a good decision theoretically. It's just sort of wait. I'm just going to wait. We're going to wait to group up. But as you can see through the wall, they actually have a Lucio on the point just chilling. Now, Zenyatta's range is quite large. You don't actually have to put yourself in danger to exert healing or damage over a large distance. And this kind of brings me to a point that a lot of times people complain, oh, well, my team never groups up. What do I do? And if my team never groups up, how can I ever win? Well, maybe your team doesn't group up as 6, but your team is going to have some sort of push that is the biggest push they're going to make. Whether it's 4 players consistently or 5 players consistently, even if they're not going to get 6, you should be able to identify when your best shot is, at least. Because I do see players, and this is actually a pretty decent ultimate, by the way. This is a good ult. But I do see players just sort of sit and never push the entire game because they're waiting for that perfect 6-man push of super coordination, and it's just not going to happen. Clearly with some teams, people just sometimes don't want to cooperate, sometimes they rush in, there's players who are overly aggressive, they like to play by themselves, and you're not going to get that perfect 6-man push. So instead of sitting there yelling at your team, monitor it and see when the best push is, even if it's not the perfect push. If it's 4 people, then 4 people is what you got, and you have to push in with it. But we're going to see that they win the fight here, and at this point, Jade is playing much, much better and throwing out orbs at a much quicker pace than she was previously. And this continues to ramp up for the entirety of the VoD, which makes me think that she should probably play a couple quick plays, one quick play, maybe 2 quick plays, before jumping into a match, because this looks like it's an issue of warm-up. Either that or it's an issue of confidence. Once the team started to win, once they started to do a little bit better, she got more into it. And that's an attitude thing. You have to be playing your best even when you're losing. Just try to block it out of your head. Always imagine your team has the same chance to win as they always do. And some players have the opposite problem. Some players, when they start to win, they get a lot worse. So just make sure that you're consistent with that and don't let the status of your team winning or losing affect your gameplay. But anyway, I think that's it for this video. I see a lot in the comments or like the Reddit threads and stuff. People will say, oh, you missed this, and that's great. Go ahead, discussion, I love it. But just to clarify, I do intentionally only pick out 1 or 2 or 3 things per video, just because, and I've seen coaches do this to teams a lot. Like after a match, they'll sit down, they'll have their notes, they'll bust out their notebook with this whole list down on, oh, you guys did this, like a big checklist, and it's just so overwhelming, it's impossible. So I think that giving 1 thing, but for the case of these videos, 1, 2, maybe 3 things to think about, and then you can immediately apply to improve on, is much more effective. So I'm going to keep them in these bite-sized chunks, but definitely if you have something to say about another part of the VoD that I didn't go over, then feel free to. So I hope you got something out of it. I hope you enjoyed, maybe even had a little bit of fun. Good luck in solo queue, and have a great day. Peace out, guys.